Hey there, my name's Larry Kotch. I'm one of the co-founders of Flybox and I'm also the commercial director. So I made this video just to help new people who are entering the space to understand a little bit about the insect farming industry prior to having a further call with them, or really to help them see whether it's an industry or a area or technology that's going to make sense for them specifically. So I'm going to run through a few things from the top. Forgive me if you have some experience already in insect farming. This should hopefully still be useful, and some of the stuff should still be useful regardless. So when we talk about insect farming, we are talking about insects processing waste and then selling the insect derived products to make income from that. So essentially, you can break down the insect farming sector into four major components: the collection and processing, handling of waste, which is the feedstock that you feed the insects. You've got the entomology bit, so that's actually having a colony of insects that are creating eggs and larvae that are then processing that waste. The other part is the post-processing, so once you've actually created the insects, once they're finished eating the waste, what products do you process them into? And then the last bit is the commercialization of that. So what kind of marketing, sales channels can you actually market these products to? And so those are the main ways that you split up the insect farming process. Now, most people who come to this space, the most logical kind of companies to enter this space are already in the business of doing one or more of those things. So you can imagine a company that is used to or being paid to collect organic wastes. It is then collecting that and either sending it on to someone else and wants to do something better with the waste, or they're currently processing it themselves and turning it into a kind of product or recovering some resources from it and then dumping the rest. Whatever the case might be, someone who already has extensive experience in waste management is going to be at a big advantage, because what they're doing is just creating a new product stream from something they're already doing. Likewise, if somebody is in the animal feed sector and they have a huge or they're in livestock and they have a huge demand for animal proteins, say they farm carnivorous fish, then they would need the insects to feed as a sustainable alternative, and that's going to help them create more sustainable products themselves, which are more sustainably fed. And so in that case, you could see someone not understanding the waste side, but having a ready market or ready customer and a good idea of how to integrate insects into their existing business model. So in both those cases, those different kind of companies might not want to take on everything else to do with insects. So like I mentioned, there's breeding, but there are companies today that can actually do the breeding for you. There's the technology. Gone are the days where you have to invent the technology. Companies like Flybox and others, depending on your scale, can help you build farms. Even the waste processing, companies that do not have the ability to process waste, there are now an emerging number of waste management companies that will supply you with processed waste, just like they supply biogas and other waste to value operators. So really, when you're coming to the space, there's not just one size fits all. There's what existing business do you have? What existing skills do you have? How can you fit in and add value into this space? And then what resources or partnerships can you make to get you a low risk, low capex way of starting a pilot and then kind of validating your business plan and scaling up from there. One of the things that I notice a lot in the space is people are extremely excited by the concept of insect farming and its potential for impact. Insects plus waste equals fertilizer and feed. That sounds like a fantastic formula. The devil really is in the details. So it's very difficult to do insect farming, regardless of what you read in the media. And forgive me to anyone who's already familiar with that. This is a general video, like I mentioned, but you really have to have a very cutting edge strategy, regardless of your scale, to make it work. There's just a lot of problems once you actually get into it that make it practically quite difficult. Things like, for instance, you might have the desire to create insect protein to sell to pet food. A lot of insect protein is sold to pet food. But if you're doing things at a small scale, it can be very difficult to create a insect product that is consistent enough for a pet food buyer. you have to control the waste substrate you use to feed your insects, because if your waste changes, your insect changes, and therefore your product actually changes. And a lot of discerning buyers do not want to buy a product that is not the same each time, because they themselves are running a very mathematical operation. So you can imagine a precision aqua farmer is not going to want one batch of your insect protein meal having 45% protein and the next week or the next month it having 50% protein. That's going to be a big difference and makes their lives more difficult. And that's one of the barriers that alternative proteins in general have had. So if you're at a small scale, you maybe don't want to target that market. Then you have limitations around what you're able to feed insects. In the EU and the UK, there's very strict regulations on what you can feed insects. The rest of the world, it's a lot more opaque. And countries like Kenya and more broadly in East Africa, you're able to use whatever you like, and you're allowed to by law. And so different countries have different regulatory regimes, and then those regimes will limit what you can actually do, what waste sources you can handle, and also what products you can then make from the insects. So again, it's not that you can come to it with a one size fits all. It is actually really bespoke. I would, I would try to encourage everybody to not think about it in terms of the concept and the impact, but think about it in terms of the value add. Like, why are you coming to this space? Why are you creating insects? For what purpose? What are the functional benefits to what customers, and what kind of product specifications do you need to satisfy those customers, and working backwards from there. So a lot of people want to jump the gun and talk about tech, but actually I find that the people that are successful in the space that I've seen have spent a year at pilot phase, really going through BSF nutrition, feeding trials, laboratory testing, trying out spec sheets with different customers, trying to secure long-term offtake agreements, building partnerships with government, building partnerships with waste supply. So there is a lot of homework to do before one can be confident in getting into insect farming. And it makes a lot more sense if you already do one of the 4 things that I already mentioned before. So that would be my takeaways for now. I'm going to produce more content as time comes on, but I wanted to just have that short video so that it's always here. And then please get in touch with me if you would like more information, and I'll see you soon.